I never planned to save an alien girl that night. I was just taking the long way home after my shift, cutting through an alley soaked in neon rain, when I heard a sound like glass humming in pain. She was curled against the wall, skin glowing faintly blue, strange symbols pulsing under it like living stars. My brain screamed run, but my feet moved forward anyway. She looked up at me with eyes like silver moons and whispered something I could not understand. Behind her, drones hovered, scanning, hunting. I grabbed her hand without thinking, and the moment I touched her, the drones sparked and died. Her eyes widened, just as surprised as mine. Later, I would learn that human bioelectric fields were toxic to their tech. At the time, I only knew one thing: I had just made myself a problem. I hid her in my apartment, wrapped her in an old jacket, and watched as her glow faded to something almost human. She introduced herself with a name that sounded like music, La. She was a scout, she said, stranded, betrayed, and now hunted. When I asked why they were after her, she smiled sadly and said, because she mattered. By morning, I thought the worst was over. I was very wrong. The door shook like it had been punched by a god. I opened it to find 3 women who looked like they had stepped out of a dream and into my hallway. Each one shared Lara's otherworldly beauty, but twisted in different ways. The first was tall and calm, with golden eyes and armor that folded into light. She introduced herself as Kalath, the eldest, protector and commander. The second leaned against the wall with a grin that promised trouble, her hair shifting kulkas as she moved. She was Nuxara, the middle sister, infiltration specialist. The third hovered just behind them, quiet, curious, eyes glowing softly. She was Seren, the youngest, and a scientist. They stared at me like I was an unsolved equation. Then Kalath bowed deeply. "You saved our sister," she said. "Your life is now bound to ours." I laughed because that was insane. They did not laugh back. Part 3, Bound by Rescue. I learned quickly that alien gratitude was not simple thanks. It was obligation, honor, and something dangerously close to devotion. They refused to leave my apartment, citing protection protocols, emotional debt, and curiosity about human culture. Nuxara followed me everywhere, teasing, smiling, asking questions that made my face burn. Seren took over my kitchen, running scans on my toaster and apologizing to it afterward. Kalath stood guard by the window every night, watching the stars like they might attack at any moment. Lara stayed close to me, quieter than the others. One evening, she told me I had changed her fate. In her world, survival demanded strength, not kindness. "You were strong in a way we forgot," she said softly. That was the moment I realized this was not going to end with them just saying goodbye. The hunters came at dawn, ships tearing open the sky like wounds. Kalath moved first, ushering commands that turned my living room into a battlefield of light and shields. Nuxara vanished and reappeared behind enemies like a living shadow. Seren rerouted my power grid into something that absolutely should not have worked. And me. I stood between Laya and a weapon meant to erase her. When it fired, it fizzled and died against my skin. The aliens stared at me in shock. Later, they would explain that some humans were anomalies, walking disruptions. Later did not matter then. When it was over, the sky healed, the hunters fled, and my apartment was mostly intact. Kalath knelt before me again, deeper this time. "By our laws," she said, "you are now under our protection forever." Nuxara smirked. "Lucky you. They could have left after that." They did not. Laya chose to stay on Earth, claiming she wanted to learn, but always sitting just a little too close. Seren enrolled herself in a human university under 6 fake names. Nuxara decided Earth needed better nightlife and dragged me along as her guide. Kalath took a job as a security consultant, somehow becoming famous without ever trying. My quiet life was gone, replaced by star maps on my walls, alien laughter in my home, and the constant feeling that the universe was watching. Sometimes I wondered what would have happened if I had walked past that alley. But then Leia would smile at me like the stars had chosen well. And her sisters would argue over who got to sit next to me on the couch. And I knew I would make the same choice again. All I did was save an alien girl. Now her three gorgeous sisters will not leave me alone. And honestly, I am not sure I want them to. I used to think the universe was indifferent. After meeting them, I learned the universe watches, judges, and occasionally laughs. It started with the signal. Seren discovered it first, while pretending to watch a human documentary about dolphins. Her head tilted, eyes unfocusing, fingers twitching in the air as invisible data streamed past her senses. "Someone is looking for you," she said quietly. "Not just you," Kalath corrected from the doorway, "all of us." Loa stiffened beside me, her hand tightening around mine. Her glow flickered in a way I had learned meant fear. "Not hunters," she whispered, "something worse." They explained it slowly, carefully, as if each word carried weight. In their civilization, rescues were not accidents. Saving a life created resonance, a measurable bond across probability. Most species avoided it, preferring clean deaths to complicated futures. Humans, apparently, were reckless enough to do it anyway. When I saved Leia, I had not just interfered. I had altered a convergence point. Entire futures had bent around that moment in the alley. And now other powers had noticed. Naxara laughed when they told me, leaning back with her boots on my table. "So basically, you broke fate," she said, "not bad for a local." Kalath did not smile. "Breaking fate draws attention," she replied, "and attention invites challengers." The challengers arrived that night. Not with ships or weapons, but with silence. The stars outside my window went dark, one by one, as if someone was turning off the sky. Gravity shifted just enough to make my stomach lurch. Lara pressed herself against me, trembling. "They are here," she said. The beings did not knock. They simply appeared, standing in my living room as though they had always been there. Tall, impossibly thin, their forms bending light instead of reflecting it. Faces smooth and featureless, except for vertical slits that pulsed with dim red glow. Seren gasped softly. "Observers," she whispered. The eldest stepped forward, or at least something like forward. Its voice spoke directly inside my head, layered and cold. "Human anomaly," it said, "you have disrupted a protected outcome." I did not know what to say, so I said the truth. "I just helped someone who was hurt." The entity paused, as if recalculating. "That response is statistically consistent with your species," it replied, "which is why your species remains a problem." Kalith moved between it and me without hesitation, energy flaring along her armor. "He is under our protection," she said. Nyxara vanished into shadow, reappearing behind another observer, blades of light forming in her hands. Seren's eyes glowed as she began rewriting the physics of the room. The observer raised a limb, and time slowed. Not stopped, slowed like thick syrup. I could see Kalith straining to move, Nyxara frozen mid-strike, Lurie's mouth open in a silent scream. Only I could move freely. The entity turned toward me again. "Fascinating," it said. "You are not bound by local causality. You should not exist like this." Something inside me snapped then. Not fear, not anger, something deeper. I thought of the alley, of Lurie bleeding light, of choosing to step forward instead of away. I stepped forward now too. The moment I did, the room exploded with motion. Time crashed back into itself, throwing the observers off balance. Nyxara's blade passed through one, slicing it into fragments of collapsing geometry. Kalith drove her energy spear through another, pinning it to the wall of reality itself. Seren screamed equations as she forced the remaining two out of phase. The eldest observer remained, wounded but intact. It stared at me, and for the first time, I felt something like curiosity from it. "You are a node," it said, "a living divergence. Others will come." Then it vanished, leaving the stars burning bright once more. Silence filled the apartment, broken only by my heartbeat. Lurie turned to me slowly, eyes wide. "You stood against them," she said in awe. "No human has ever done that." Nyxara whistled. "Guess the universe really does have a crush on you." Kalith did not joke. "This changes everything," she said. "They told me the truth after that, the parts they had hoped I would never need to know. Some species were anchors, bound tightly to destiny. Others were currents, flowing within it. Humans, rarely, produced anomalies, beings who disrupted fate simply by existing. Most anomalies burned out, died young, erased by probability. "You did not," Seren said softly. "You stabilized us." Lurie knelt in front of me then, something she had never done before. Her sisters froze in shock. "By our oldest traditions," she said, voice shaking, "I bind myself to you not in debt, but in choice." My brain stopped working. Nyxara burst out laughing, nearly falling over. "Well, that escalated," she said. Kalith stared at her sister, then at me, then sighed. "It appears we are all following now," she said, "whether we intended to or not." Life after that was never normal again. Governments noticed the anomalies in the sky. Other species began sending envoys instead of hunters. Some came seeking alliances, others seeking control. All of them were wary of me. I became something like neutral ground. Meetings happened in my apartment, on my couch, over coffee that Seren kept upgrading until it technically violated several laws of thermodynamics. Nyxara took great pleasure in intimidating diplomats by casually flirting with me in front of them. Kalith became my shadow, protector, and advisor, her presence a constant reminder that my safety mattered on a cosmic scale. Lurie stayed closest. At night, when the universe felt too big, she would sit with me on the roof, watching the stars. "You are not alone anymore," she would say. I believed her. The observers did not return, but their warning lingered. "Others will come." And they did. But they did not find a lone human. They found a nexus. A home filled with laughter, arguments, alien technology, and four sisters who would burn galaxies before letting harm come to me. All because one night, in a dark alley, I chose to help someone who needed it. The universe is still watching. But now it hesitates. Because I am no longer alone. And neither are they. The first warning came from Kalith. She was standing on the roof at sunrise, armor half-formed, eyes locked on a point in the sky I could not see. "Something is aligning," she said. That was her version of panic. Seren confirmed it minutes later, her holograms filling the living room with spiraling equations and probability trees. "Multiple convergence vectors are collapsing toward you," she said. Nyxara stretched and yawned, utterly unconcerned. "So basically, everyone wants a piece of him now," she said. Lurie did not speak. She sat beside me, her fingers laced tightly with mine, glow pulsing in a slow, worried rhythm. In her culture, silence meant resolve. They explained what was coming in fragments. Not an invasion, not diplomacy, but something far worse. A convocation. The convocation was a gathering of powers too large to fight openly. Ancient species, machine collectives, energy intelligences, empires that ruled not space but causality. They met only when reality itself required negotiation. And apparently, I had become an agenda item. I did not love that phrasing. The location was chosen without my consent. Earth orbit, neutral territory, symbolic and provocative all at once. A ring of light formed above the planet, visible even from the ground. Human governments panicked, religions improvised, social media exploded. Nyxara spent an hour reading conspiracy theories and laughing so hard she cried. Kalith took command. She coordinated with species I could barely pronounce, positioning defensive arrays that looked like abstract art to the human eye. Seren embedded herself into every satellite network on the planet, gently rewriting protocols so nothing accidentally started a war. Luri stayed with me, always within arm's reach. When the convocation began, the sky fractured. Not violently, but precisely like a surgeon's cut. Shapes emerged that did not belong to any one dimension. Voices echoed without sound, presence without form. I was pulled upward in a column of light before I could protest. Luri came with me, refusing to let go. Nyxara flipped me a salute as we vanished. Try not to agree to marry anyone without us, she called. We arrived in a chamber that did not exist anywhere. It was perception given structure, a space built so every species present could believe it was real. I stood on something that felt like stone, though it shimmered like liquid thought. They were everywhere. Entities of light, shadow, metal, sound, absence. Some were so massive my mind slid off them when I tried to focus. Others were small, contained, but radiated danger like gravity. The convocations spoke as one, then as many, then as something in between. The anomaly is present. The anomaly destabilizes long-term projections. The anomaly generates unpredictable bonds. I felt Luri tremble beside me. She squeezed my hand, grounding me. I raised my head and did the most human thing possible. I asked why. Why does helping someone break the universe? I said. Why is kindness a threat? There was a pause, long enough that I felt the weight of civilization's thinking. Then an answer. Because kindness creates variables. Variables erode control. Control preserves order. That answer made something inside me very calm. Order without choice is just a cage, I said. And I am really bad at staying in cages. The chamber reacted. Ripples spread outward, probability shifting like sand. Several entities recoiled, others leaned closer, intrigued. A machine intelligence spoke next, its voice precise and sharp. You are a contagion, it said. Where you act, outcomes diverge exponentially. Left unchecked, you will fracture established hierarchies. Nyxara would have loved that. Kalith's voice echoed then, cutting through the chamber like a blade. He is under our protection. Her presence manifested beside me, armor blazing, Nyxara and Seren flanking her, weapons and equations ready. You do not get to erase him for being inconvenient. Luri stepped forward too, glow brightening. He did not choose to be what he is, she said. But he chooses us every day. That mattered more than anyone realized. The convocation argued. Not with words, but with shifting realities, simulated futures playing out around us. Worlds where I was killed early, stability restored. Worlds where I was enslaved, weaponized, contained. Worlds where humanity was uplifted, then shattered. Then one more future appeared, faint but growing stronger. A future where alliances formed across species. Where rescues were no longer anomalies. Where strength included mercy. That future centered on me, but it did not end with me. It spread outward, branching endlessly. Seren stared at it in awe. That future was statistically impossible before you, she whispered. Now it is merely unlikely. The convocation fell silent again. Finally, a decision emerged, not unanimous, but sufficient. The anomaly will not be terminated. The anomaly will be observed. The anomaly will be allowed to continue. I let out a breath I did not realize I was holding. Allowed is not the word I would have chosen, but I took the win. We were returned to Earth in a cascade of light. The ring in the sky dissolved, leaving behind questions no one could answer. Humanity would spend generations debating what had happened. Life settled into a strange new rhythm after that. Not peaceful, but purposeful. I became a point of contact, a translator not of language, but of intent. When aliens arrived scared, angry, or desperate, they came to me. Because I was the one who helped without asking what it would cost. Nyxara took to calling me Heartbreaker of Empires. Kalith rolled her eyes, but did not deny it. Seren started documenting what she called the human effect. Lurie just smiled and stayed close. One night, long after the convocation faded into rumor, we stood together on the roof again. The stars looked the same, but I knew better now. They were watching, waiting. "Are you afraid?" Lurie asked softly. I thought about it. About the galaxy, the powers, the weight of it all. Then I looked at her sisters behind us, arguing over music, laughing, alive. "Yeah," I said. "But I would still do it again." She leaned into me, glow warm and steady. "So would we," she said. And somewhere, far beyond the stars, the universe adjusted its expectations.